I bet I'm going to get a lot of flack for this video, but I guarantee to you that any Russian watching, or heck, any Eastern European watching is probably going to agree with me. So first, let's discuss what is actually taking place. You have Carlson doing something unfathomable. He decided one day to commit an act of journalism, and because he is not part of the establishment media, which is considered to be the only journalist ordained by God nowadays, people were upset. It's like, how dare he interview Putin? Even though MSNBC has interviewed him in the past, BBC has interviewed him in the past, CNN has interviewed him in the past. I go, that was fine. But you may say, well, hold on a little bit, right? Even though the United States is not technically at war, you're still like not supposed to interact with the man. And that is false, because we have seen the leftist media interview terrorists, interview people like Bin Laden. They interviewed even individuals from Hamas, right? They interviewed Bashar al-Assad. Like, to imagine that this is bewildering, that a journalist has the audacity to talk with another president, means that we need to completely forget about past events. And for some bizarre reason, it seems that this is a trend with social media nowadays. We live in the now. There is no past, it's just the now. Really, nothing happened until now. Everything that happens now is supposed to shock or surprise us if the media tells us to. But we are completely disconnected and detached from any type of history, any type of precedent. It's just the now. The now is what matters, right? So because Carlson wants to interview Vladimir Putin now, we find out that it is unacceptable. You should be angry. Guy Verhofstadt can't sleep at night. Okay, fine. So he goes and does the interview with Putin. And as I said, in my opinion, it wasn't a bad interview. There's a lot of memes surrounding it. I already said that if Putin is going to say something that people don't agree with, he's going to get fact-checked. There was a debate about the Russian history that Putin presented on social media. Certain people were saying, no, that's Russia's version of events. That's not what our version from Poland is. Right? Like, these debates were normal. And it's healthy in a society for people to actually talk and debate. He also asked for the release of a journalist that's held in Russia, right? So I do say that he behaved in an acceptable manner for any journalist, right? He wasn't like a Russian puppet, as people like to say it. But he got a lot of flack, right? Like, he got a lot of people upset over his audacity to commit an act of journalism. So, due to that, he made a video where he actually says that he feels betrayed by his own government. Like, he feels that the people in power in the United States have betrayed him, an American citizen. And he talks about the fact that he wanted to interview Putin even before the war. So, like, before this conflict. And the Secret Service agencies were monitoring his private conversation. And he thought that the American government shouldn't have the ability to do this to him, especially even when back then he was working for the corporate press, right? So he was working for Fox News. And he basically feels that that crossed the line, and what's happening now is the straw that broke the camel's back. So while he is in Russia, he is releasing all sorts of videos, which is trying to show the West the Russian way of life. And he is presenting it from a positive view, I suppose, but this is what Tucker always has done in the past, right? Like, when he went to Hungary, he presented the Hungarian way of life as a positive. He was basically saying how there was no problem at their border, and he saw some dirt on the ground, some garbage on the ground, and the border guard just went out of his way in order to pick that up and put it in a trash can, and this impressed Tucker because he said that in America that would have never happened, right? So like, he does these things. Like, whenever he travels around the world, from my experience, like, in whatever country he happens to be in, he does try to make a couple more videos that he presents, and he puts a positive light on that nation, right? And this is what he is doing right now in Russia. Like, he went to the Russian subway, which, unironically, like, regardless of what you think about Russia, it is one of the most beautiful subways in the world. And he was showing how there's no graffiti there. He was basically showing how everything is in order. There's no one trying to push people onto the train line, although I'm not sure like that never happened in the history of Russia, but it's probably not as common as it happens in Chicago or San Francisco. I assume. I don't know. I'll have to look at the statistics, right? So that was like an interesting video. It wasn't about Vladimir Putin. It wasn't about Stalin, which is the one that organized the construction of the metro. It was just about like, look, how do the Russians manage this, right? Like, how do they manage to not have graffiti on their walls? Like there must be a system, that there must be a way that the government keeps the subway clean, right? Because the subway belongs to the people. Like, a lot of individuals, a lot of peasants have to go to work with the subway. Now, if you're a rich Democrat like Nancy Pelosi, you have a black car waiting for you at the door. But for the rest of us peasants who do have to go to the subway, we would appreciate it if it's not dirty and if there's no crime, right? So, like, that was his question. And that was one interview, which apparently upset a lot of people. But then he made one that upset me particularly. For reasons that it triggered some repressed memories that I have. He went to a Russian supermarket and said this.
I went from amused to legitimately angry. So we were guessing what this would cost. Everybody hears from the United States buys groceries, and we didn't pay any attention to costs as we were just putting in the cart what we would actually eat over a week. And we all came in around $400, about $400. It was $104 US here. And that's when you start to realize that ideology maybe doesn't matter as much as you thought, corruption. If you take people's standard of living and you tank it through filth and crime and inflation, and they literally can't buy the groceries they want, at that point, maybe it matters less what you say or whether you're a good person or a bad person. You're wrecking people's lives in their country, and that's what our leaders have done to us. And coming to a Russian grocery store, the heart of evil, and seeing what things cost and how people live, it will radicalize you against our leaders. That's how.
So I do agree with this take that the economy matters the most, right? Like, everything else can be considered a luxury belief as long as you don't starve to death, as long as you can keep the lights running, as long as you can have a normal way of life for yourself and your family, right? Like, this is what I, as an Eastern European, have always been bewildered when I see the Americans talk about, like, nonsense ideologies and all sorts of flags and bullshit that doesn't really affect their life. And it's not that you're not supposed to talk about those, but, like, when those become, like, the primordial thing, like, when those become more important than the economy, it bewilders me as an Eastern European, right? So I do agree with that take, that it can radicalize you if you see that a group of people have a better lifestyle than another. But the question is, like, do the Russians actually have a better lifestyle? Because if that was true, like, surely you would have, like, mass migration from the United States to Russia. Like, it would be the same when you have people from South America going to America because it's a much better way of life, right? But we don't see that, right? And why don't we see that? Despite the fact that, as Tucker said, it's like $100 for groceries that in the United States would cost $400. Why is it, right? And the reason is that he forgot to talk about how much Russian people earn per month. Because that's very important, right? Here in Eastern Europe, the wages are different. Like in 2016, when I managed to graduate med school and I became a doctor, I was making roughly $500 a month. So with $500 a month, $100 of shopping, that's a lot. Now, I did the check to see what is the average wage in Russia. And from my sources, it was around 73,000 rubles, give or take. That translates into dollars like $800. So $800, if you're going grocery shopping and you're spending $100, assuming that you're shopping for 1 week, which is probably what Tucker did, right? Because he's not staying more than 1 week in Moscow. That would be like $400 a month. So you're making $800, and you're spending $400 groceries. That's insane, Tucker. That's a lot, right? The dollar has different purchasing power, right? This is why a lot of the nations that are poor, and this was actually a joke in Eurotrip, I think it was called, the famous comedy movie, where they managed to end up in Eastern Europe and they have 10 cents and they're living like kings, right? The reason for this is that you're not part of their economic system. Like, you're coming from abroad with money from your country, and yeah, you can live like a king, but if you actually live there and you earn wages from that place, then you realize that your living style goes way down. So I'm really surprised that Tucker didn't know about this, right? Now you can make the argument, it's like, well, why are things more expensive in the United States? And the answer is because of supply and demand. That like when you have people that buy more, right? So you have like a lot more purchasing power, then the prices go up. While if people don't buy stuff, then the prices go down. I mean, it's basic economics. But anyway, right, no, I agree with his statement that the economy and the way of life should be at the center and at the heart of politics. However, the example that he gave, completely atrocious. Completely atrocious. And again, like, it annoys me because here in Romania is the same thing. You know, like, when I tell Americans, hey, you know, like a house in Romania is $70,000. And I'm like, wow, really? It's like that cheap? And yeah, but like if you live with a Romanian wage, 70 grand is actually a lot. So anyway, let me know what you guys think. And as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care.